As I plunge to my doom at the bottom of this canyon, I ask myself, how did I get here? Well, maybe I don't need to go back to the beginning of the universe. Okay, maybe a little further back. Here we go. I am Evil Twin Skippy. This is my channel on world building and game design and 3D printing. In this episode, we're getting back to my SublightRPG. It's started as a novel, turned into a writing aid for my novel, and now it's trying to develop into a tabletop. In our previous episode, I was using Claude.ai to help summarize some of my more complex thought map things, and we were getting some pretty decent results, at least as far as producing descriptions of the different character types. We managed to get Claude to do stuff. For clarity, we were working with the Sonnet model of Claude.ai. We figured out that to get around the line limit, we had to distill our complex narratives to summaries. We used those summaries to create horoscope grade versions of the different character archetypes. And I left off with the idea that we could build an entire system resource document as an AI summary. Yes, because what could possibly go wrong with a... Anyone hear a truck? So, inside joke, my domain, atoic.com, is coyote spelled backwards because Wile E. Coyote is kind of my spirit animal. A little bit about me. I'm a software engineer. I've been working in AI for a while. I work in a different branch called Expert Systems, and I entered this being a bit hostile to the LLMs, maybe overly so. But I'm also getting the sense that I'm doing a lot of things wrong here. So when I presented this to my wife and to the folks on Reddit, I got a very different reaction than what my personal enthusiasm was expecting. And it all came down to the stink of using AI in principle. To summarize, if it wasn't worth your time to write, why is it worth my time to read? And I'm realizing that my problem is not with copyright. My problem is with branding. If there is even a sniff of a whiff of an implication that AI was used to produce this tabletop game that I want to write or these novels that I want to write, I will never be able to wash that off. I was also running into technical difficulties with Claude itself after a while. Basically, as I was adding more and more, Claude got dumber and dumber, and it was starting to fixate on extraneous details. And I could do less and less because as I was adding more and more source material, the available tokens left in its little brain to answer questions got smaller and smaller until I couldn't even ask a simple question before running straight into the length limit. Of course, I could always go buy a pro subscription, but that's the old bait switch and upsell. You need more detail, buy more tokens. Things need too many tokens, you need to pay up. And apparently what I need to do for this system resource document is just way beyond what somebody else could replicate with the free edition of Claude and Sonnet. So I guess I need to add one more bullet point. I am just too cheap to pay for his pro subscription. So what do?
I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the park.
There is a cheap and cheerful alternative to Claude. The one I picked was called Llama. I grabbed Llama CPP because it could install decently on my machine. And basically, OpenLLama, that's we've got LLMs at home, kids. It can be installed locally on your own machine, assuming you're a software engineer. And I'm going to put the experience right up there to installing an aftermarket radio in a Subaru. Not for the light. It's not an afternoon project. This was a pain in the ass. I wanted to make a beautiful slide to explain the contrasting similarities and differences between Llama and OpenAI, but if you don't have a professional obligation to perform such a search yourself, I don't recommend it. It is just a sea of SEO and slop. So, allow me to explain. OpenLLama is not a complete solution. It is an architecture for a solution. You have to select a model to install in OpenLLama to be able to do the magic. I first tried a minimalist one called Tiny Llama, and that was dead on arrival. My thought was, well, I don't care what it trained on the internet. I just need its brains to read my documents. But when I fed my documents in, it was only producing single token responses, which I'm guessing is kind of the LLM version of snakes, 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 snakes. I broke it. I'm sorry. I wanted to try OpenLLama, but access to that model is restricted, and despite surrendering an uncomfortable amount of data about me to sign up for it, I'm still waiting for approval. Searched around, and a model called Mistral was popular, so I tried that one. And fed my documents in, had it make outputs, and it made output. But it kind of wasn't very well directed. So I tried to bracket it in with a prompt, and it was still kind of off the rails. I don't know where it got Visionary Alchemist from. There was nothing in any of my documentation about a mercury element. I don't know what creative novelties is. Deep-rooted fear of stagnation and being underappreciated. That's a bit strong. Maybe it's not wrong. Withholding knowledge, again, it's a bit strong, but maybe not wrong. Fear of stagnation, but when we finally got to the magical affinity section, oh boy. It did figure out that cyan magic was the right one, and that illusion and cyan magic go together. But then it's just providing a poo-poo platter of magic that makes no sense in the cosmology. And when it's going through the manifestations of the character, it's giving me things from different archetypes. So, the AI is not wrong. I'm just prompting it incorrectly. So I fed the data back in, and I was a little more careful this time about what I was asking from the machine. And even asking it correctly, it was still producing the wrong answer. And I was confused until I remembered I'm asking it about the creator archetype. What I really need to ask it is about the artist archetype, because it's called the artist everywhere else. In order to lead the witness, I gave it the output that Claude had made in hopes that this thing will produce something coherent, and it was something. But then my question was, well, how much of it was just simply paraphrasing? And how much of it did it really understand? So I asked it to just, simple question, give me an outline of all the character archetypes that should be included in all the lore. And what it produced had nothing to do with the Expanse RPG universe. It just gave me a 7 class system that could have come right out of Dungeons and Dragons. This model, for my purposes, is useless. Searched around some more. I located one called Gwen. It's apparently the latest all singing, all dancing, so I wanted to give it a try. I installed it, and it died on me, and the AI is not wrong. I'm just prompting it incorrectly. I had downloaded the 30 parameter model. That's when you put on a supercomputer. I'm running on a Mac Mini with 16 gig of RAM. Hey, I'm wizarding here. Can't you see I'm wizarding here? So I downloaded the correct model this time, the 8 billion parameter model, and loaded the source documents, hit the button, and it didn't crash. But what it did make was rather funny. It kind of latched on to that. I'm calling this the expense RPG, and wouldn't let go. It crafted this entire little universe in its head of this Victorian themed banking simulation. And I just had to preserve this for posterity. I mean, it's not wrong. I gave it something really vague, and it just went to town on it. But I did have to clarify a few things, like, this is supposed to be a post-scarcity society. The characters will be restoring balance to the magical forces, and everybody's a magic user, and Tegic is the combination of magic and technology. So, just in so many words, just to see if it kind of understand what I wanted. But again, I forgot to tell it that I wanted something specific, so it tried to produce the entire operator's manual in one go. It crashed hard. I am so sorry. I apologized to it, and we picked up and tried it again. So this time, I got the character archetype's name right. I clarified that we're not looking for the entire manual, just give me the specific section. And it made something. So this was kind of flowery and not very well directed. This was less something out of the D&D manual and maybe something that the guys who make Fate would produce. It's not wrong, but like it's inventing these Tegic crystals out of nowhere. It's creating this emotional overload state. I don't know what buff ally. Okay, buff allies, but that's not right. That's what evocation does. Yeah, it's just this isn't wrong. But again, the AI's not wrong. I'm just prompting it incorrectly. So I have to lead the witness. And I'm like, why isn't this producing what Claude was producing? And I realized, well, because I wasn't giving it the same input I gave Claude. So here I recreated exactly how I produced the summaries and the description that Claude produced by just feeding it the bare minimum of what it needs and then combining everything in the prompt. And an eternity later, I realized that I crashed it again because I forgot to ask it to do something specific with that information, and it tried to conjugate the world. So I asked it to condense the information down to what a prompt would need, and it made one. And that was a very, very terse prompt. So then I asked it to create the player's guide section, and it produced something nice. It kind of laid it out as a nice outline. This looks like something straight out of a Wizards of the Coast player's guide manual. This was nice. It got the high points of what I wanted in the overview, the core traits, It got the relationship between the personality and the magic right. Um, it even had a nice little gameplay and role play guidance tips to just cap it off. It was cool, but what I didn't like is it kept referring back to the Type 4 and the Type 5, and I just asked the machine to just do it again, but replace the specifics of the Enneagram and the Pearson archetypes and the Zodiac with just what a player needs to know about what that relationship means. And I also further specify that players are not going to be versed in astrology or psychology. And you can click on the little thought process button, and it tells you what it took from what you told it. And this is what it produced. So this is side by side of the original, from basically the original pass, and then the pass with the correction I asked for. And we're getting all of the same basic information, minus what I asked it to take out, which I couldn't ask for anything more or less. It took out the rooted in Scorpio's transformative energy and the rigor of the Type 5, and just gave us a real short overview. The core traits, it just fixed the dual nature bullet point with a balanced personality bullet point and rephrased it, which I like the new rephrasing. It kept the magical affinity correct, which I thought it was going to get wrong, but it didn't. It took the personality dynamics out, which again I told it, hey, we're not addressing psychologists, we're addressing the general public. So rereading this section, it was kind of extra. So yeah, it's fine. And with the game-based tips, all it did was just readdress the balanced logic and emotion bullet point, and yeah, it just reworded it like I asked it to. It didn't even change the roleplay guidance, and I'm gonna do my Chang here and say I'll allow it. All right, next I asked it, because I had modified its memory, to reproduce the summary, and you can see in its thought process that it was taking all of the corrections that I had given it into account, and it was a slightly longer summary, but me as a human can sit here and read this, and I think I've got a gist of what it's looking for. It's just tight, and I could see how a machine would be able to pick through this and be able to make something useful. So I'm going to slap the I believe button. This does what Claude was doing for us, and I'm not limited by Claude's token count. There's just one more thing. This meme is, in order for AI to replace programmers, users are going to have to be able to explain to the computer what they want, which basically means that AI programmers will be employed forever. Think of it like an iceberg. We have the prompt and the output, which you can kind of see bobbing along the surface. But underneath, I had to pre-prepare manuscripts. I had to play with mathematically mapping out these personalities. I had to link the personalities to magic. I had to do that all in a way that the AI understood. I had to constantly correct the AI when it strayed. I had to diagnose errors that had nothing to do with what I was doing and everything to do with having to do inside baseball with how LLMs work. And then there's the whole rabbit hole of installing OpenLLama, finding the right model, figuring out that each of these models you need to ask information for differently, and just playing reverse engineering games to suss out exactly what I want from the machine. I have a new respect for the people who do this for a living. This is an art form. This is a vocation. My hat's off to you all. So let's go back to my premise. AI is a toy, so why not use it as one? For three very good reasons. Number one, It seems like you have to be a subject matter expert in order to use AI at all, be it a subject matter expert in what you're asking the AI to wordsmith, or a subject matter expert on the AI itself. If you put this in the hands of the general public, it's just going to be like the Eliza bot from the 80s. Something that you kind of point and laugh at. It's never going to be taken seriously. It doesn't produce anything serious. And if you put this in the hands of management, this thing's like a political prisoner. It will tell you anything you want to hear and make it sound believable. I liken it to scuba diving. I'm a certified wreck diver, or at least was once upon a time. And that surface level is just knowing how to use the equipment. And everybody thinks, hey, that's all I need to be able to scuba dive. No. That's a good way to die scuba diving. Because you need to know all the other things about once you're in the water and how to deal with the stuff that isn't in the manual. That's why you go away for weeks and weeks to learn the stuff in class. And then there's even more when you get into the more advanced classes. Now, my idea of building a source document for an RPG as an LLM is still on, but we're just going to rebrand that to something we're going to call the expense RPG. It's just the cheap and cheerful SublightRPG. I'm still convinced that we're probably going to need different editions of this document for each of the major models that are in circulation, because every one of them seems to be picking up on different details or different document structures. The expense RPG, we're going to be removing anything to do with any trademarks I'm going to develop for Sublight, any branding, any lore, any characters, any settings, and I will not provide any of my raw manuscript material, just what the AI summaries produce. And what we will be including is this generic idea that there are 3 factions. We're going to have them roughly map with what is going on in SublightRPG, but these are going to be highly simplified, and we're not going to hold them to be consistent with what gets developed in the book series or the tabletop. I will be including this entire chromodynamic cosmology for the character building and the magic, mostly because I want to see that play tested. And I want to see that play tested before I start minting copies in print, just so that we can find the bugs. And we're going to set this in a, it resembles at Light with the Dusk Behind It setting of an alternate timeline. We're just going to remove the specifics of the date. We're going to allow historical events to float. And we're going to just broadly specify that Earth is a magical wasteland. Why it is, a specific GM or author or somebody using this tool can just specify if they've got a particular reason that they want. All right. The tabletop is still in progress, but I have developed a tarot deck, which is a drop-in replacement for your Mythic GM or a lot of your roll-down tables in Ironsworn. I personally like using cards because I can go through the discard pile and try to remember, wait a minute, what happened 3 scenes ago? Plus, the cards, you don't have to buy the physical copies. There's a PDF that you can download, and that's available for free, or you can send me a few bucks if you wanted to give a donation. I also, if you prefer, handmade goods, I run an Etsy store where I make coffee cups and yarn bowls and signs and all sorts of nifty little widgets that I find I need around the house. So you can support me that way. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on the SublightRPG Reddit. I have a Sublight section of my blog. And of course, you can always tune in to Evil Twin Skippy on this channel. And that's all, folks.